Good evening, Facebook. This is Old Veteran once again. As I recorded yesterday, this is the Watchmen of America Facebook Live event for tonight. I am the commander for the state of Kentucky, and I will be doing this session tonight on food stores, food prepping for disasters, emergencies, SHTF, and just basic peace of mind. We got one person. I'm just going to kind of go slow till we get a few people in before I really jump into it. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. Sorry about the light that's shining, especially off my large forehead, but it's the only light I have over my table where I'm doing this, so I have everything around me that I can get to. I tried to block some of the light, but then I couldn't see my notes by the computer, so give and take. So just kind of squint or adjust your screen if you can. Pardon me while I put my eyes back on. See what we got here. We got Bubba's here. Hey, Bubba. We got Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Got two so far. Said I don't want to jump into it just yet. Get a few other people here. I've got some good information to pass along. Some things I think are going to be helpful to seasoned preppers as myself, or seasoned people that like to be prepared, i.e. preppers, myself, many others, also for novice, people just starting out. And I know you can go crazy, and sometimes people want to jump into prepping and realize everything going on in the world. They want to jump in, and they get blindsided by all these companies out there, Wise Food, Agassiz Farms, such, Mountain House, so and so and so on. And that can be pretty expensive, and it can add up quick. And those little buckets, and I have one to show you here in a second, they can add up really fast. And the problem with that is you start putting money into them, but then if you ever actually open it and start looking at it, you're going to be highly surprised of what you paid for, that you could actually prepare something better for yourself and your family than what you're buying there. If you look at most of it, 80% of that stuff is basically all noodles. It's a noodle type based meals and rice based stuff that you can do a lot cheaper. Well, we got a few people in now, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. For those joining again, I am Old Veteran, and I am the commander for the Kentucky chapter of the Watchmen of America. And the national chapter can be reached at www.watchmenofamerica.com. And there are links on there for the different states for those that are watching from other areas, and also from the state of Kentucky. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. Welcome to those that are here. We got a couple, so here we go. Now, food storage and food prepping. It sounds scary if you don't have any idea how to get started. Some people are going to be seasoned and know what to do. Other people just are brand new at it and they want to get started. All these disasters that would happen all over the world, and especially in the United States, we've had flooding, hurricanes. We've seen what happened in Katrina, Sandy, flooding in Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, wildfires in California, hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfire. It goes on and on and on and on. The problem is, a lot of people think that, well, if it gets bad enough and the power goes out and we're without, the government's going to come help us. Wrong. It's your responsibility to help yourself and help your family and help your friends if you deem necessary to do that. Because the government, you're low priority on the government's totem pole. If you just remember back to Katrina, it took 3 days for FEMA, that's federal government agency, for emergencies. That's what they're supposed to be prepared for. It took 3 days just to get bottled water to the stadium for people to have water to drink. 3 days. So that's people that needed water, and they were pushed right to the limit of the number of days they can go without water. So if you think the government's going to come help you, they're not, at least not anytime soon. So you better be prepared for yourself. It used to be that the government would tell you that each family should have at least 2 weeks worth of food. They don't really stress that anymore. In some areas, they're telling you you shouldn't prep at all. If you're a prepper and you're storing stuff up like that, you're a domestic terrorist in some areas. It's just ridiculous. But it's your responsibility to take care of your family and protect your family. So how can you do that? Well, you got your basic general items, everyday items that you buy at the store. I'm trying to figure these cameras out. They're kind of backwards. But you got your canned goods like that. And you got your tuna fish. This happens to be turkey, which actually I get at the dollar store. And I'm going to talk about the dollar store because that is a wealth of items that are half price or more from the grocery store. This is pink salmon. This is from the dollar store. We got Luncheon Loaf. It's the exact same thing as Spam. I have Spam. I've eaten Spam. I love Spam. And I eat this. It's the exact same thing, just doesn't come in the many varieties and flavors of Spam. Guess what? At the dollar store again, compared to Spam at $3.59 to $3.89 in my store. So I can get 3 of these for what people are paying for 1. So that's just your basic canned items that you get at the grocery store. The other good thing at the grocery store and the stock up on, this is peanut butter. This camera's backwards. It's peanut butter. Peanut butter is a great supply item. It's high in protein and has fat in there. And actually, there's been studies done that if you just take a couple tablespoons of peanut butter a couple times a day, that would be enough to let you survive. Yes, you'll lose a lot of weight, but you got to remember, emergency situation, you're not going to be preparing the 3-course meals that you normally do. And yes, calories have to be cut. But the idea about emergency situation is you are trying to survive and you're trying to get your family to survive. The other thing that a lot of people do when they prep, they jump right into this big old lovely stuff that we have out there, emergency rations, MREs. Everybody goes crazy for the MREs. Veterans out there like myself know exactly what MREs are. And if you don't have hot sauce and ketchup, most of them are pretty bad. Now, the newer ones, they're not as bad. But I've got a little sheet that I'm going to read some facts off to you that's going to surprise you. My recommendation, I have about 5 cases of MREs. But I live by myself. It's just me and my pup out here. And I do have my kids, but they live further away, which I could bring them out here, and I have grandkids. MREs are fine on short term, but if you're not active military and out patrolling and out doing heavy movements and moving around, the calorie content in an MRE, let alone the carbohydrates, will do nothing but in the long run cause you a lot of health problems. They're good for something that's quick in an emergency, just to get you someplace, but not an indefinite source. These people that buy hundreds of cases of MREs, they're fooling themselves because it's going to cause them more physical problems and health problems overall, especially if they're just hunkered down somewhere and they're not getting a lot of physical activity. Like I said, I will look at and give you some information off a couple of the actual meals, the calories, and you're going to be surprised of what's in there. Along with the canned items, and I do home canning in the canning processor. I do green beans and pickles and salsa, spaghetti sauce without meat, spaghetti sauce with meat, and yes, believe it or not, you can actually can meat. This is pork. This is off of a pork loin with all the fat trimmed off of it, and it doesn't look so great. I understand that, but you got to remember this is 5 years old. This is still edible. The broth was already dark because I had put in barbecue sauce in with the meat when I cooked it. This is fully cooked. It's still sealed. I've eaten a jar of this a couple weeks ago. I have 2 left. It's perfectly fine. As long as you don't have fat on your meat, it's perfectly fine to do the canning of it. And the average canned items, they tell you they'll last, a year to 3 to 4 years. They have found canned food items canned in grandmother's old food storage areas that have been over 50 years old and opened them up, and they've been just as fresh as the day they were packed. If that seal is not broken and they have not been subjected to high heat and then freezing and then heat, they're going to be fine. Even jellies and jams, some of the sweeter items like that don't last quite as long, but you're looking at a good 3 to 5 years on them. Best way to do it, if the seal's still there, pop it, smell it. If it doesn't smell bad, you may have now on the top of some jellies and jams, you may get a little layer where it's gotten darker. That's okay. You can scrape that off, taste the stuff below it. If it tastes fine to you and there's no problem, then it's perfectly good. So home canning is another way to go for your vegetables, your meat. You can't do fatty meat because the fat is going to what causes things to go rancid. So for meat items, you want to use like that, like the boneless pork loin. Cut all the fat off. You just got basically good pork meat in there. Again, you can use chicken. You can use turkey. You can actually can fish. And Ball makes a great book on canning. It's about 2.5 inches thick. So anybody wants to get into canning, the Ball canning book will take you through it all. Plus this wonderful internet we have out there. There are tons and tons of canning websites that'll tell you how to can everything. There's a lady that actually uses the wide mouth jars like this that I watched one time, and she actually makes individual meatloaves canned inside of the canning jar and stores them and uses them throughout winter. So there's so many different ideas you can do to use them. So there's a vast amount of items out there that you can pick from to do the canning, your store-bought stuff. Going back to the store-bought stuff, your corn, the canned meat like the Spam and everything like that, they have best used by dates. Used to have expiration dates. Now most of them have best used by dates. That is just the manufacturer suggested to use by. Why do they put that on there instead of saying it's good for forever? Because if I only sell each customer 12 cans of corn and they only buy it every 6 months and I make nothing but corn, how am I going to stay in business? Telling you that it'll last you until you don't ever have to use it again. So that's the reason they put that on there. Actually, they had found there was a study in 1974. I'm looking up because I've got some notes up here. Out in California, the National Food Processors Association, scientists that belong to that, analyzed a 40-year-old can of corn, several cans of corn that were found in these people's grandmother's basement out in California. They opened them up, and everything about that can of corn, this is a store-bought can of corn, was just as good and fresh as a can of corn off the shelf that time that they were doing it. The only thing that they did on their study and found out, the vitamin C and vitamin A content had dropped just a little bit. So after 40 years, they were still good. If you have canned goods, it's best to rotate them out, but you can have a separate supply. You want to make sure when you have a canned item and you're going to be using it, that it's not dented, it's not bulged out, it's not rusted around the edges. When you open it, it shouldn't make any sound like the sounds of the coffee when you open it and you get that shh. It shouldn't do that. Okay, they're not made that way. And you got to remember, vegetables are flash cooked inside of those cans, so they are already cooked and any bacteria is already killed. So until you open it or it gets a dent or a crease in it to where it may let a little bit of air in, they're still good. Again, with everything, you just want to test it. Okay, and it's common sense. I mean, if it smells bad, don't eat it. So on those items, I mean, it's basically going to last you quite a long time. Another way of preserving food items is a dehydrator. You can get you a dehydrator. I have 2 of them. And you can dehydrate your food. You can actually dehydrate meat, not making jerky, but you can dehydrate it past the jerky stage, because jerky, the meat you're making it out of, may still have some fat content. Fat in meat causes it to go rancid. So unless you put preservatives in it or heavily salt it, it is going to go bad after a period of time, usually a few months. But if you dehydrate green beans, your peppers, jalapenos, tomatoes, those items are going to last forever. Okay, so what you want to do with those, again, get you some of these canning jars is the easiest way to do it. Take an empty canning jar, go ahead and you can fill this up with, say, green pepper. You sliced it up, diced it up, however you wanted it to be. and you put it in here. You can get a ton in here because it's all dehydrated. Once you do it, I also have a vacuum sealer. You can get the container, the little plastic thing that goes on top that provides a suction, and it'll actually seal this. It'll suck the air out and cause this lid to pop. So now they are definitely stored for a while. And if you didn't want to do that, you could also take a small oxygen absorber, stick it inside of there on top of it, and that'll do the same thing. And you will actually hear the lid go pop, just like it comes out of the canning, because the oxygen absorber is absorbing all the oxygen out of that container, causing a vacuum. Dehydrating is probably one of the best ways you can do, because you can fit a lot of stuff in a small, lightweight pouch, and you can make your own MREs for camping of what you want. You can actually dehydrate chili. If you make homemade chili, you can take it and dehydrate it. Excuse me. You can buy these little trays like this for your dehydrator. It's just a solid plastic tray. I've got 2 of them, but you can buy as many as you want. You stick this on there, and this is for liquid stuff, like making your fruit roll-ups for your kids. But you can put your chili on here in a layer, dry it out, dehydrate it. You can break it up, stick it into just a Ziploc bag, or if you wanted to get fancy, you can use a Mylar bag and an oxygen absorber and seal it up. And then when you go camping, that little pack is going to weigh hardly nothing. Then when you want to heat it up, you just add some boiling water to it, bring it back to its consistency, and it tastes just as good as when you made it. So dehydrating is probably, it's time consuming, but bulk and quantity wise, it cuts weight back. I mean, if you wanted to try to bug out and carry a couple hundred of these, they're going to start adding some weight. If you wanted to start carrying case MREs, they start adding up some weight. So that's what you have to look at. Canned goods like the corn and stuff, if you're going to bulk out and carry those things and think you're going to get them all and carry them, how much are you going to carry and how far? Now, if you're like me and you're lucky and you happen to already be in your bug out location, I live out in the country surrounded by about 400 acres of woods. I go out my side door here, my patio, I step off. I've got about a ½ acre of grass, and then it's solid woods all the way back through. So I'm already here. I'm not going anywhere. So my stores are built up for me to be here and for people to come here to me, not me to go somewhere else. That's something else you need to think about. Other things you can get, Emergency Essential. I get a lot of things from them. Check them out. I'm not endorsing anyone by any means. Watchmen America is not endorsing anyone. But Emergency Essentials website is where I get most of my stuff, because they run some really great sales, and you can get items that are 50% off. And sometimes they buy some of their buckets. They have buy one, get one free, or you buy 2, get 1 free. They also sell the MREs in individual meals, which I'll show you in a second. So you don't have to buy the whole thing, or you can buy the crackers or the little peanut butter or cheese spread, which I'll show you in a second. They have a lot of stuff like that. So this right here happens to be vanilla granola, and this is from 2012. I have a can over here that I've eaten some out of and put an oxygen absorber back in it, and it's still fresh. This is really good. It's a really good treat, especially for children. It's very sweet, but it just gives you a little something to snack on while you're doing your stuff. Another thing that you may want to think about, powdered milk. Now, it's not everybody's forte, and in the old days, the old box powdered milk, especially people my age who maybe remember that when you were young, it was nasty. This stuff, I have a can that is open that I have tried it, and once it gets cold, you can't tell the difference between this and regular fresh 2% milk. I mean, I've tried it, and you really can't tell. So, and they do make a special pitcher for it that has a built-in agitator that you just go up and down with it, and it agitates it and gets rid of the powder. It's really good. Back to the vacuum sealing. These are from 2012, so they're 6 years old. That was vacuum sealed 6 years ago. Okay, it was kept in a sealed military plastic storage unit, and these are actually butterscotch. Well, they're not chocolate chips; they're butterscotch chips. I just happened to have an extra bag, and I did them in there. Why? Well, one, it was an experiment to see how long they would last, but 2, it's sweet. not all your emergency food has to be nasty and MRE based and military gear based or your energy bar based, and it doesn't have to taste bad. You should be storing the food that you eat. If you're going to store stuff your kids aren't going to eat, yeah, eventually they get hungry enough, right? They'll eat anything. But you really want to listen to that moaning and groaning in the emergency situation, everything else going on. Plus, there's a lot of stress. Best thing to do, keep everybody happy. So keep some sweets. So that's what I kept them in there for. Along with sweets, a dollar store bag of mints. Again, this one was from 2013. These are just a little, excuse me, Star Mints. Vacuum sealed since 2013. The air never penetrated this bag. I mean, that's how good vacuum sealing can be. And they're not very expensive to get the vacuum sealers. The bag sometimes can be expensive, but you can cut them to whatever you want. So there again, you've got some kind of sweets. You can do the same thing with lollipops, any kind of candy really. Gum, I have some in my thing back there. I have where I've actually done several packs of gum. So there's things in there that you can do for kids. This right here is Spanish rice. It's 6 servings. This was done on 2012. And in here, this little discoloration, actually what I did there is I cut the back of the little packets. I cut the instructions off. So I knew basically how to measure it. And like I said, I know there's 6 servings in here. Each pack was 1 serving. So all I have to do is just multiply these directions by 6. I can make this whole big pack. So you have those items. Mylar bags are excellent, along with oxygen absorbers. This is some dried beans that I put in here, 1 pound pack of dried beans done on November of 2013. So 5 years ago, this was put in a bag and 1 oxygen absorber was put in here, and you can see how tight this brick is. This is very lightweight. Yes, it's a pound. It weighs a pound. I understand that, but it's very lightweight. It's very stackable. You can make these stack very well into a bucket. Your MREs. The bag I showed you, the box I showed you there is a civilian version of the MREs. They're just meals individual. I do have military MREs. They're pretty much the same. They just give you a little bit of more different stuff in there. But that's what the civilian looks like. It comes with your crackers, a meal, the dessert. Usually the desserts in all these I've come across are 2 packs of Pop-Tarts or a pack of Pop-Tart put in there, but they're all vacuum sealed. The individual meals I was talking about, you can get on Emergency Essentials, just this. It's just the main meal. This one happens to be the pork patty, so this doesn't weigh anything at all. It's just the main meal with a pork patty in there. And let's look at what this has in here for calories. It's 240 calories. 180 of those are from fat. And it's got, well, it's only got 3 grams of carbohydrates. So that's not bad. It's one of the lower ones. But this is just a small little beef or small little pork patty. That's all that is. So there's not much in that. You can get different kinds. They have them. I buy them when they're on sale. I probably have about 100 of these individual ones like that that are not bought in MRE packs. I've also bought individual packs of the old concrete hard crackers to put in there. They do come in handy. You can use those. What I like is you can also get the individual packets of peanut butter, of jam. I've got blackberry and strawberry jam in here, peanut butter. I've got cheese spread. All the vets remember the cheese spread, and also even have the jalapeno cheese spread. So I've got those. That's a great benefit to be able to buy them like that, and you can pack something lightweight for your use. Those tubs I was talking about, this right here, these are your 25-year tubs. This one happens to be Argus and Farms. This, excuse me, this is the same thing as Mountain House or Wise Food. This is the same type thing. This I bought 2017, and it's got 92 servings in it. However, when you start looking through it and reading all about it, like I said, most of those servings, it's a rice or a pasta type meal. That's what almost everything in there that you're going to get out of those. So that's nice for a backup. You're going to get tired of noodle after noodle after noodle meal, okay, or rice after rice. And yes, the old adage, rice and beans, preppers, that's all you need. And that is true. You can live off of rice and beans. Why? Rice has the carbohydrates and starch that you'll need, and beans actually have more protein than the same amount of beef. So if you want to look that up, I've checked several places, and different beans have different amount of protein, but on average, your beans will have equal to or more protein than the same weight of meat, and they're easier to store. Just like that, that's 1 pound of beans. Yeah, I don't think you're going to eat 1 pound of beans for a meal. That's pretty filling. A 1 pound steak, that's easy to chuck down. A 1 pound burger, you can probably chuck that down. But this, 1 pound of beans when they're cooked, that's going to be hard to get down. So they fill you up quicker. So rice and beans, yeah, you could actually live on that for a very, very long time. Do I store rice and beans? Yes, I have over 200 pounds of rice and over 200 pounds of beans stored, along with about 6 cases of each vegetable, about 20 cans of that Spam lunch meat, and the fish and chicken and turkey canned chicken and turkey stuff put up. Peanut butter, I've got about 14 jars of peanut butter. Again, it's just me out here. That basically all the food I have stored for myself, I could probably make it go 8 months or longer. If I bring family out here, grandkids and stuff, I can probably make it stretch to 3 to 4 months. When you're doing your food stores, another way to do it is you can get these PBA free, which is a chemical in plastics that can leach into food items. These pails, this is a 6-gallon pail. This is actually a food grade prepper's pail. It comes with the lid. Once you knock down, it does seal it. You can use a 5-gallon paint bucket that's new, doesn't have any paint in it, that you could get at Lowe's. You could use a Lowe's 5-gallon bucket or Home Depot if you can get the lid to snap on them. That's fine. Just don't put the food directly in it. I wouldn't put food directly in it, but you could take these individual meals, go back to dehydrating, make up a bunch of individual meals like MREs, and you can stack a lot in that bucket, and then you can take that with you. Just label it. Bulk rice, I get mine in 20-pound bags from Walmart for about $9. That's about the cheapest I found, unless you want to go somewhere and buy the big 25 pounds or 50-pound bags, which you can. I would not dump that directly in that pail, however. What I would do is you can get different Mylar bags in different sizes, all the way from these little bags. Of course, you can customize them, they're Mylar. Little bag like that to make your little camping MREs. Hi, Allie. My pup Allie decided to come see me. You can get a little bit bigger ones. You can get even bigger ones, and you can also get ones that are 5 gallons that fit down in the bucket, which right now I don't have any handy. But you can get those different Mylar bags. You take the Mylar bag, put it in there, squeeze as much air out as you can. You put your rice in there to fill it up. Throw you several of your larger oxygen absorbers, and they come in several different sizes. These are small oxygen absorbers. These are larger ones. They even come in bigger ones. So for a 5-gallon, I would throw about 4 of these in there. Seal your bag, push your air out, throw these in there. Then heat seal your bag, and then let the oxygen absorber do its work, and then seal up the container once that has sealed itself up, and that rice will last forever. Along with your stores, don't forget don't forget salt and sugar and honey and flour. Your salt, sugar, flour, and honey basically will last indefinitely as long as no moisture has gotten to them. Honey has been found from the pharaohs in Egypt, and it is still just as good today as it was 3,000 years ago. Honey does not go bad. It may crystallize, but it will not go bad. It's pure honey. If you buy the little teddy bear squeeze thing in Kroger, that's not pure honey. You have to make sure it says pure honey. This is Central Kentucky pure honey. Okay, you're going to pay more for it. You can see it's got a little crystallized in it. It doesn't matter if it crystallizes up. All you got to do is you can stick it down in some hot water, or you can actually put it in the microwave. That's just crystallization. It's not anything wrong with it. It's not going to hurt it. Honey is also good for first aid. It's excellent. You can put it across a cut or a wound, and it will seal it so that no bacteria or anything gets into it. That was just a side note. I'm not going into first aid. That's a different subject. So covered most of everything that I wanted to cover on that. Let me go ahead and grab, this is a little printout, and this is actually, and I'm sorry I don't have the site, but you can look it up. It's actually a site made for the government that has all the meal menus and the calories for each one of those MRE meals, okay? ones I highlighted, these are going to, it blew my mind. I knew they were high, but I couldn't remember how high. The menu number 10, chili and macaroni, which is actually one of their better ones. That meal is 3,560 calories with 525 grams of carbohydrates. Now, I'm a diabetic. That carbohydrate count right there, that's going to push me way over, so you have to be careful. 3,560 calories. An average man, usual consumption is about 2,000 calories. You're not going to burn that off. So if you eat two of those, you just have eaten 7,000 calories for one day. That, you're not going to burn it off. Plus, the people that are familiar with MREs, you know what that's going to do to your gut, and you know what's going to happen to you. Here's one that blew my mind, a vegetarian taco pasta. Vegetarian now, 3,175 calories, 498 grams carbohydrate. Not along with the calories and carbohydrates on these MREs, they are slam packed full of sodium. So blood pressure and diabetics, that's one thing you need to worry about. I'm not going to read all of them. Here's one that got me. Tuna, chunk light, lemon pepper tuna packet. 2,728 calories, 371 grams of carbohydrates. So that's why MREs are not your best bet to go with. Also, along with these Mylar bags and using your oxygen absorbers, again, it's family. Remember, store what you're going to eat and what you're going to use. And if you got children, don't forget cereal. You got powdered milk stored up. Don't forget cereal. Now, I wouldn't be buying Fruity Pebbles and all that type of stuff with a ton of sugar in it, but maybe Honey Nut Cheerios, regular Cheerios. You can put sugar in that. Regular cornflakes, just put some sugar in it. You can put those in. Don't keep them in the bag they come with. You could cut the top of that bag open, stick that bag in here with the opening up, stick your oxygen absorber in it, heat seal this. You can, larger ones, you can just run an iron across it. It melts it together. Guys, if your wife's not looking, you can grab her hair straightener, and they work great. Or just go to Goodwill or Walmart and buy you a cheap hair straightener and label it for the bags. It's not going to hurt the hair straightener, but I know sometimes ladies can get a little upset, especially if they have one of those real expensive ones for $60 and they see you sealing plastic with it. You might get hit with a frying pan. So it's not a good idea. But don't forget, you can do cereals. You can put a lot of things in here. So don't forget kids and sweets and stuff like that. Also at the dollar store, they have them in the grocery stores, but I've seen them a lot in the dollar stores, and I live in the dollar stores, is freeze-dried fruit. That stuff in the grocery stores costs about $4 to $5 a bag, and my dollar store has actually had freeze-dried apples, strawberries, and I think it was pears. And they taste just like candy. That is incredible. Freeze-dried is your best way to store items. If you want to get a freeze dryer, they do make them for your homes. I don't have one. I'd love to have one, but the average price usually starts at about $5,000. But then again, you can start making your own meals out of freeze-dried stuff. You can even freeze-dry ice cream sandwiches, and they don't melt once they're freeze-dried. But you can buy freeze-dried items cheap like that, the fruit, and put that up as well. I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to get into. Along with when you're doing your food stores, remember, when you go to the grocery store, don't forget to check out your dollar stores, because, I mean, that cans of that meat, that lunch meat, which is the same thing as Spam, I get it for $1 a can instead of $3.59, $3.99 a can of Spam. So I can get 3 for $1, almost 4 for $1. And they'll last for a long, long time. In fact, I've had cans in there that I've eaten recently that have been 6 years old, and there's nothing wrong with it. Not a thing. But if you're on a budget, don't be looking at your MREs and these big buckets of food storage items. When you go to the grocery store, you're going to buy a jar of peanut butter a week. Well, why don't you buy 2 or 3? They're only $1.50, $1.65. I get coupons all the time from Kroger, so much off. I got one this last month for a free jar, just for whatever reason. So I got it. Buy a little extra. Your vegetables, your carrots, your corn, buy a little extra. If you're going to buy normally 8 cans of corn, buy a whole case of 12, 4 up. Build it that way. It took me a year or so to really get a good storage supply going. Your rice, do not store that, or your beans in the bags they come in. If you want to leave it in the bag, even though 20-pound bag of rice at Walmart, it's a little thicker bag, but you don't want to store it in just that bag. Go ahead and put it in a Mylar bag in a bucket, cut that plastic bag top off, put your oxygen absorbers in there, and go ahead and seal it that way. Another thing you want to think about storing, as I mentioned before, is salt and sugar. I buy the sugar in 25-pound bags, and then I store them in these Mylar bags, smaller bags, so I can get a couple pounds in a bag and then stack them in a bucket. Sugar is always nice to have. Also, load up on your tea bags. Buy tea bags when they're on sale, when you can find them. The big tea bags for making iced tea, get those. Stick them in Mylar bags and store them up. You can always make sun tea. So along with your food prepping and your food storage, one thing I want to stress is don't forget your water storage. I'm not going to go into water purification or anything like that. That's in another video, either by myself or somewhere else. But don't forget to have a good quantity of water on hand. You can be storing all this food, but if you don't have any water, how are you going to prepare it? And remember, an average estimate for people is to have 1 gallon of water per person. A little less for children, but an average is 1 gallon of water. Can you live on less than that? Yes, you can, but it depends on your environment, your heat, and your exertion ratio. So you have to remember all this. Another thing with your food prepping, the reason you don't want to keep things in the cardboard boxes like, say, macaroni and cheese, that's another excellent thing to put up. I do those a lot. They don't go bad. But you don't want to keep things in the original boxes, because one thing you want to think about in an emergency situation is, what is the emergency that could happen around you? Are you prone to an area to be hit with a hurricane, flooding, that type, mudslides, that type item? Well, what's going to happen with your stuff? What about those boxes of cereal? They're going to get wet, corroded. Those bags are probably going to leak. Your macaroni and cheese, that box is going to get soaking wet. Your macaroni is now contaminated. Put everything in these Mylar bags, seal them up. Once they become sealed and they're like this is airtight. I can stick this in water. Nothing's going to happen to it. Obviously, if there's no air in it, no water is getting into it. So remember, store this stuff. If you put it in these big 5-gallon or 6-gallon buckets, that also helps protect it. It's easier to dig these buckets if you got them stored in the basement and you get flooded. You don't have to worry about your food supplies getting contaminated. The biggest thing during disasters like hurricanes and flooding is disease. The water is contaminated. You got to remember that flooded water is also coming out of your sewers, out of your water treatment plants, out of your sewage treatment plants. They also have cemeteries that get flooded. How many pictures have we seen on the news with caskets that have popped up into that flooded water? That's all disease, decay, and nasty stuff. If you have your food stores that are penetrated by that stuff, you are just going to make your family sick or kill them. One other thing that I want to talk to you about is the Watchmen of America. This is our catalog, 2018 Watchmen of America catalog. This has got everything from A to Z in it that you can think of. We buy stuff from here at wholesale and below wholesale prices being a member. You'll be surprised at the prices we get. I could quote you some, but I'm not going to, because if you want to know, go to our website, take a look around. There are a few things on there that show some prices. But becoming a member for $39.95 just for a full year, trust me, if you buy about 4 or 5 items out of this book right here, you made that money back. For what I paid for, going to be paying for a whole uniform set, BDU set, the whole set is going to cost me what it normally would for just the shirt, a BDU shirt. So that's the savings. I'm talking upwards of 60% or more in savings. So check us out, Watchmen of America, www.watchmenofamerica.com. Check our website out. If you got questions, post it on here. Post it on the website. If you live in Kentucky, contact me. You can go to the website at watchmenofamerica.com. There's a link for states there. You can click on that state. You can fill out the information on there. It comes directly to me, Commander of Kentucky. Same with any other state that we have active. You do that on their site, it's going directly to the commander of that state. I appreciate everybody that showed up. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. I hope this can get you started. Remember, you don't know when an emergency is going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. So be prepared, be safe, stay safe. God bless. This is Old Commander, out.